Hi, good afternoon. We are just giving everyone a few minutes here to get down in, and we're going to get started. We're going to be muting the lines, so there's no feedback. If you've got, if you don't have your phone on mute, if you could do that, that'd be appreciated. But we're going to go through and mute all the lines, so that way there's no feedback during the presentation. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone today to our webcast. The focus for today will be EDI review training. We'll cover tips and tricks today. Today is the first of a monthly series of webcasts that Accellos will be presenting to our EDI for GP customers. So we're pleased to get started with this webcast. We're going to be as a wrap-up, we'll give instructions on how to submit feedback to us on future topics that you'd like for us to cover from our team here. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate you taking time of your day to spend an hour with us. We hope this will be beneficial for you. Let's go ahead and get started. So again, thanks for participating in this session today. I'm sure for most of you, EDI plays a strategic role in your business. For most of our customers, EDI is used for exchanging time-sensitive, critical business documents with usually your largest customers through third-party logistics partners that are doing distribution for all or a large portion of your orders out to your customers, or maybe even you're using EDI for coordinating supply inventory into your facility. So we've got a wide mix of individuals. We've got well over 100 individuals that have dialed into today's session. So we've got a varying level of understanding of EDI. So we're going to start and just sort of cover some very basics on EDI, just so everyone has a better understanding of what EDI is. And that way, as you're having discussions about EDI, as you encounter questions or issues with your trading partners, you'll have a better appreciation for what EDI is and what it means to your business and how your EDI system works today. So we're going to start off there. I'll provide a bit of an overview on how to interpret an EDI message. So for those of you that are involved in processing EDI, you'll have a better appreciation of how to interpret an EDI message if you ever have an issue. I'm going to walk through, we met with our support team and walk some of the most common types of EDI issues. So we'll spend a little bit of time walking through how to deal with those types of issues so you're better equipped if you encounter those issues as we move forward. Cross-referencing is a standard maintenance function across your EDI trading partners. So we're going to cover why cross-references and how to best maintain those. As you onboard new trading partners, we're going to walk through what steps you need to take to make sure that process is as smooth as possible. Cover some commonly overlooked features within the Accellos EDI solution. Walk through some advanced options to make sure the group is aware of those options and comfortable with using those. I'm going to talk about some recommended EDI system maintenance as well. And lastly, we want to talk about upgrades, and specifically GP 2013. As your organization is evaluating upgrading, whether it's to 2010 or likely 2013, so want to make sure you understand what that process entails. And then we'll wrap up with a introduction to social site that we have, community building site we have, where we have a number of materials available for our customers to use. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. And I want to just provide a surface level overview of EDI. We won't cover too many slides, but I just thought this would be appropriate given the size and level of knowledge of EDI in the group here. So EDI has been around for some time. It really formed because companies were exchanging high volumes of transactions, and they were dealing with those on a paper basis, a fax basis, phone conversations. It was very inefficient, and as the velocity of products moving throughout supply chains picked up, or as there was a high volume of transactions, there needed to be a much more efficient way of doing that. And rather than building a method for receiving orders and exchanging invoices with Target, building a different method for Walmart, that would just be really costly. The barriers would be just much too high. So EDI was adapted. There were standards that were developed that provided for consistency and how various business transactions are exchanged between companies. So some global standards out there. ANSI X12 is used here in North America. Outside North America, EDIFACT is a common standard that's used. For just about any business document that is exchanged, there is a EDI standard. So we'll talk about some of those most common EDI documents, but anything from purchase order to an advance ship notice to a mortgage credit check, I mean, there's an EDI standard for all those documents, and the whole intent is just to gain efficiencies and simplify the process for business documents with all of your different business partners. EDI is in use across virtually industry out there. Most of our customers, most of you on the phone, are probably suppliers to retailers and maybe using a 3PL in your supply chain as well, or ordering components or finished goods materials of a vendor sourcing partner, and you're leveraging EDI to facilitate that process. So we'll cover that again in more detail in just a moment. So briefly, why is EDI important to my business? As you calculate why you're leveraging EDI today, if you are you're most likely not given an option. Generally, if you're working with a Walmart, a Costco, Sam's Club, etc., Amazon, generally required to do some EDI. Some retailers will allow you to do what's called web form EDI. It's still any volume of transactions, so a lot of manual keying of documents. Actually, if you could mute that line there, whomever just dialed it, if you could put your line on mute there, that'd be much appreciated. Thank you. So, if you're a retail supplier, you're most likely required to do EDI document exchanges, and we'll cover that again in more detail. It allows you to really tighten up the transaction with your business partners. As I mentioned today, in today's business environment, you've got to exchange business documents. You've got to move inventory very quickly, very short windows to fill orders. So you don't have a lot of time to get orders into your system. You don't want mistakes. You have to coordinate that process as quickly as possible. So EDI provides for a means of integrating those documents into your system, eliminating the manual entry, and eliminating any keying errors that are costly when you ship product to the wrong location, ship the wrong item, those types of things. And lastly, I just want to mention, if you're doing much volume with a business partner, EDI is becoming more and more of a competitive necessity in today's world. So, just so everyone has a better understanding of what your EDI solution entails, I always try to break it down into 3 different layers. There's a communication layer, which is the layer that allows you to effectively exchange documents with your business partners. And there's really 2 common methods for that. The first is called direct connection, and that's exchanging documents directly with a business partner. Retailers like Walmart really mandate that you do what's called AS2. And for that, we have a solution that we leverage as part of the vSync solution called Clio Lexicom. There's another method called FTP and Secure FTP. Those will, again, allow you to exchange documents directly with your business partners. If you're doing much volume in terms of transactions, we always encourage our customers to evaluate doing a direct connection because it can help minimize your ongoing transaction costs. It also eliminates a third-party component in the overall line of communications and exchanging documents with an important trading partner. So if you're not familiar with what direct connection is, if you want to know more about that, reach out to us. Happy to explain that to you. Our ultimate goal is to help you minimize your transaction costs with your business partners. Some trading partners do not support VAN. VAN is basically an electronic post office. So you have an account established on a virtual network, and a trading partner such as Target submits an order to you, it leaves their mailbox and is routed to your mailbox in this virtual network. And Gentran connects into that network and downloads those transactions. Conversely, you're sending out transactions to your business partners. Gentran will connect in, push your outbound business documents such as invoices and shipping notices and PO acknowledgments to your box, and then they route it to the appropriate business partner from there. So Gentran facilitates the communication process. It also facilitates will be translation. So EDI natively, and we'll look at that in just a moment, but EDI is a format that your Dynamics GP just simply cannot interpret. So we translate that data to a format that we can then integrate into Dynamics GP. We also have some error checking, some validation, some business rules that are in place, massage that data so we can then import it into Dynamics GP. The last layer is the vSync integration layer. That's what sits inside Dynamics GP, and if you're logged into GP, you'll recognize that module. That's where you import your orders, send off invoices, picking tickets if you're using a 3PL, etc. So most of you are probably familiar with this, but I think it's always helpful to really kind of understand all the pieces that make up the whole. Okay. So some common EDI transactions. You know, you may understand the business process, but you may not be familiar with the EDI nomenclature, so I'm just going to cover this briefly. In the EDI standards, there is a identifier for each core transaction. So I'm not going to cover everyone that's out there. There's literally hundreds of them, but cover the ones that are most common that I would imagine most of your organizations are exchanging. This is just a purchase order. That's an 850 if you're dealing with consumer goods. If you're dealing with a grocer, it's an 875. That's the transaction set they use. 855 is a PO acknowledgement. Not all companies require them, but effectively a line-level detailed acknowledgement that a customer may require that you send back to them to advise them on whether or not you can fill their order, meet their delivery time frames, etc. Next document's an 810. 880 is the format used for grocery, but this is an invoice transaction. 860 is a change. This is not used by all retailers. Target specifically is one of the retailers that use this quite extensively, and this can cause some challenges for suppliers because you may get 60, even up to the day that you're planning to ship the order out. And if you need your inventory, if you're shipping out a larger shipment, it can be quite disruptive to deal with that change the day of processing a shipment. So those are documents that generally you'll print out of Gentran and then determine if that order has reached the point of no return, meaning you've already packed it up and shipped it out the door. If you haven't, it's a matter of determining how to deal with that particular change, whether it's reducing the quantity, increasing the quantity, changing the ship date, those types of changes, sometimes even changing the location that you're shipping it to. 56, that's an advanced ship notice. Not all retailers do require those. In grocery, a lot of times it's not a required document. But that's effectively an electronic manifest that advises the receiving party of what's being received, and they leverage that to automate the receiving process on their end, because an advanced ship notice is accompanied by a GS1 barcode label that's retailer specific, and that barcode is a identifier that's included in the ASN. So as they unload your pallets and your boxes inventory from thousands and thousands of suppliers at their distribution center or their store location, those documents, the ASN documents, allow them to automate that receiving process. I'm told that some individuals cannot see my screen, so let me just make sure that I'm connected here. So I'm going to continue on. Looks like our moderator has confirmed that she can see the slide deck here. So if you can't see, I apologize. I'm going to continue on here and just let the moderator know if you're unable to see the screen. We are recording this session, by the way, so we'll make this session available for all that's registered. Okay, so let me go on here. The 820 is the remittance device. That's basically a decomposition of all the invoices that were paid when one of your customers pays you electronically, includes the deductions, chargebacks, that type of stuff that would have been applied to the invoice. 846, this is commonly required if you're dealing with a dropship vendor program, meaning that you're supplying Amazon, or if you're supplying like a Costco.com or a Target.com, commonly want you to send them the inventory on hand detail, so that when they have your inventory on their website, if you below a certain threshold of inventory, they'll pull your item off the site until you report back that you have enough inventory to be able to responsibly meet demand for that particular retail site. And that's because they just don't want to deal with stockouts and damage their reputation. So if you're doing those types of programs, or what I call click and mortar, then you're going to have to exchange that document. 32, that is a price catalog. That's why a lot of retailers use more in healthcare, from my experience. Basically just a breakdown of your item pricing details, item descriptions, those types of details that a company may want you to automatically send to them as you have new items added to your inventory or as you have pricing changes, those types of things. This is a very common document. You really don't, there's not a application for integrating it into Dynamics GP, but Gentran sort of handles that automatically behind the scenes, and we'll cover that in just a moment. Lastly, if you are outsourcing to a third-party logistics firm, 940 is a document that's used to advise your 3PL of which orders you want them to fulfill. The 945 is a document that comes back that advises you of which documents or orders were filled, which line item quantities, type of detail, freight costs, carrier used, and then that in turn drives the fulfillment process in GP when you're physically separated from your inventory and it's being handled by a third party. Okay. This is a bit of an eye chart, but I think this is helpful to kind of illustrate that behind your supply chain operations, there is an information flow that coordinates the movement of inventory throughout your supply chain. So EDI is really a business language that's used to help orchestrate that process. And I just covered a very common workflow here in your supply chain. If you're familiar with your operations, you may be using a 3PL, so that may not apply to you. May or may not be sourcing component finished goods inventory from a supplier. But I'll just briefly walk through these components. So if you're working with a retailer or a larger distributor, they're likely going to send you a purchase order via EDI, which in turn creates a sales transaction inside of Dynamics GP. They may require a PO acknowledgement to be returned back, which is exported out of Dynamics GP. They may also require an advanced ship notice. So as you download the orders to your warehouse or as you hand the picking tickets up to your warehouse, they go off and pick that inventory, pack it up, and ship it. And then you create ASN, print the GS1 labels, put them on the boxes, and send the advanced ship notice out to your customers. Order's been shipped, you would send the invoice off to your customer. Some retailers will send you back a remittance advice or an 820, and that can be used to create a cash receipt inside of Dynamics GP and apply the invoices to your payment. Then some retailers will also provide sell-through data or sales data, and that can be leveraged to do analysis on trade promotions, marketing, advertising, effectiveness of territorial type activity. So I'll talk about that in a bit when I talk about some feature functions that your organization may not be aware of or may not be leveraging today. If you're not using, or if you're not handling your own distribution and you're letting a 3PL for all of your distribution or at least a portion of it for a certain region, there's a series of documents that are used to facilitate inventory moving between you and your 3PL when you're physically separated from your inventory. First is a 940, and that's where you just send off a doc to your 3PL and advise them to ship an order. They would send back a 945 advising you what had been filled by them. Some 3PLs will create the ASN on your behalf if you are outsourcing to a 3PL. Have to do that. You can certainly create an ASN through our product as well. There are documents that are commonly used with a 3PL, such as a 943, and that document's used to advise a 3PL of inbound inventory that's being received into their facility and leverage that to help kind of automate the receiving process. They'll send back a 944, which is a confirmation of what they received, and then we in turn help drive the receiving process into Dynamics GP for that inventory and validate that they received the right inventory against the PO, and that kind of closes out the procurement process so you can process the invoice from your supplier. If you are using EDI with one of your suppliers, it's really the inverse process that we covered with customers, so I won't go through that in detail. I think you probably get the point there. Okay, we read an EDI message. For some of you, this may look quite foreign, and that's okay. And just to be very candid, you don't have to be an EDI expert. You don't have to have an EDI expert on staff. Our codes are of all different sizes, and some have a EDI coordinator on staff. Others do EDI more through a committee type process where someone in customer service may handle orders, someone might handle invoicing and payments, and someone in warehouse operations may handle ship notices and other types of transactions. So it's a lot of different configurations. There can be benefits and some challenges with those different types of configurations, but what is that you at least have a surface level understanding of how to process the EDI documents and then how to react if you have a cross-reference error or if you have a document that comes in a Gentran is not okay. And also you know how to set up a new chart and what that process is, how to coordinate that through Accellos. So let's start with just how to read an EDI message, and we won't do a deep dive. Some of you are probably nodding your head and know all this stuff already, but I'll cover this just for everyone's benefit. So this line that goes across here, this is an actual segment. So within each and every EDI transaction set, there's a specification or there's rules for what information should be included inside that document. So I'm going to pull up Walmart, who's the largest retailer in the world. I'm going to pull up their specifications. I'm sure there's a large percentage of this group of all here that's worked with Walmart and supplies to them, but this is their specifications, and we're not going to consume this, but this is really the lexicon or the rules for how you do business with Walmart, and specifically how the 850 is formatted and how you should interpret that information. So this defines how they communicate things such as discounts, allowances, charges on their invoice, how the pay terms are communicated, how their dates are communicated to you. A lot of this stuff is business context specific. So, for example, if you are a food and beverage company distributing something that's perishable goods, you're likely going to have to provide lot codes for item traceability, with expiry dates. But if shipping out something that's in the consumer electronics industry, that doesn't really, it's not relevant. So that type of information does not need to be exchanged on EDI documents. But you have to deal with serial numbers because that's something that would be required, those types of products. So anyway, the specifications are published by each and every company, and they're leveraged to ensure that we've got the documents mapped per those standards. But it's a really helpful guideline as we're looking at an EDI document to understand what 00 really means. Now, we know that Accellos, so we can help with that. We understand this. We can look at this and interpret it in our sleep. But if you're not comfortable with this, again, you can leverage the support of Accellos, and you can also look at the specifications to help you understand what these values mean. So this line going across horizontally, again, that's a segment. Within that segment, there's what's called data elements. So each asterisk here, it's called an element separator, is a data element. So this would be the BEG element 1, B element 2, BE element 4, 5, and 6, and so on. And then lastly, the last value you see there, it's a tilde. That's a segment terminator. An EDI language that has to be there. That's how the system knows that it's the end of that segment and time to go to the next segment. Okay, so let's continue on. So how to read an EDI message. Just with EDI, if you were to mail 25 invoices to one of your customers using snail mail, you probably put them all in an envelope. You put a stamp on there, or the postage, and you would put the from address and the to address, and that's effectively how it's routed, right? So that is really no different. The envelope information that helps route that electronic message to your business partner, whether it's a customer, a buyer, a carrier, 3PL, etc. So that message, there is the from ID and the to ID, and this is what's established inside of Gentran. This is what's established on your VAN network, and on the network, it knows that this ID belongs to so-and-so company, and when you're sending a document, you have your trade partner's ID in that document, and that's how it knows to route it to Walmart or to Honeywell or whomever you're sending that business document to. So just as well as the mail, a group of 25 invoices, within an envelope here of EDI documents, I could have 25 invoices or purchase orders or 1,000 invoices or purchase orders within that envelope. Information. Then we have information that applies to every component on that order or that business transaction, and then you have the line level detail. So again, segments of information. So this is the BE segment, or the beginning segment for a purchase order. And if I know what that value represented, I could go to the specification for Walmart, and I could look that up, BEG, and let me find the right section here. Okay, so here's the BEG segment, and the BEG03 data element is the purchase order number. So that's how I know what that value is. It's the PO number. And then we have F segment, and so on and so forth. So hopefully that's helpful. Now let's move into common EDI errors. And we did some research of our support team, reviewed our incident management system to see what some of the most common issues were. And the goal I set for our team is to go off and build some helpful documentation, some tech notes, or some videos for our customers. So when they encounter these issues, they have a helpful reminder of how to deal with those issues. So we'll be posting out some of those types of materials to our customer community, so that way you guys can leverage those as we move forward and be a little bit more effective in sort of resolving issues quickly. So the first thing that we encounter quite commonly is a not okay document inside Gentran. And I'll guys through a couple scenarios here for each one of these issues. So a not okay document validates that when an EDI message is being processed in, that it is, first of all, it's complete and it has all information that's required within that particular document's specification. So if there's any rules that are violated in terms of that standard, it's going to look, this document is not okay. And what that does is that allows you to stop and review that document before you release it to a trading partner. If you send an SN or an invoice to a customer and it's missing required information, there's a good chance they're not going to accept that. They're going to advise you of an error and require you to fix that. If it's an invoice and you post out to them and it's not complete, they're simply just not process it and they won't pay you. So that's why it's important to make sure that the documents are sent complete, and Gentran helps catch those types of issues. As in documents come into your system, such as a purchase order, if it's missing certain information, Gentran will help catch that. So I'm going to transition over to what should be a familiar looking application. This is Gentran, the direct version. And as we can see on the desk here, we've got a couple of documents that came in not okay. So the red question mark folder. So if I go in here and I click view, I can see specific partner it's for, what type of document, PO number, and of course the status here of not okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this 850, which is a purchase order. These are document data. This may not really help me understand what the problem is. I may not be experienced enough with EDI to know what the issue is. I can look at this and tell you what the problem is, but if you're not an EDI expert, that's perfectly okay. There's a tool that can help you identify the problem. So if you go to view and click translator report, this will tell you specifically where the error message is at down on this section here, and it tells you there's one error. Okay, the date, or the date and time segment, second line is the first element is missing element. So for that particular segment, the DTM segment, you're required to send this particular element, and it was not sent. So this does happen. Business partners will send documents that are incomplete. Sometimes these types of issues they're not really necessarily consequential in processing that document into GP. But when you do these types of situations, if you're not sure to handle it, you can certainly contact our team. If you're familiar with how to at least read that error report, you can determine if that's going to really impact processing the order. In this case, I didn't send the date and time qualifier. So that could mean that when I set the date, the requested ship date on that order, it may not get set properly. So contact the customer and ask them to resend that document, or I may know how to handle that particular situation, and I don't have to deal with that trading partner to resend the document. The next one, I'm going to click view, and I'm going to go back to the translator report. It's telling me the PO1 segment, element 6, has an invalid conditional relationship. Look at my Gentran data, and PO1 element 6, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is a qualifier, and what it means is that it's qualifying a value that follows it. So UP is a qualifier that means that the value that follows it, the subsequent value, is UPC number. So in this case, if you send a qualifier but you don't have a value following it, it's going to fail. So Gentran marks it as a not okay document. So that's why this document was marked not okay. And if you were to import this order, it wouldn't know which line item to assign to the sales transaction. So this is a situation where we would have to reach to the trading partner, confirm which part number they intended to purchase, and have them either reissue the PO or give you a copy of that order, and then you'd have to key it into GP. Okay. Cross-reference errors when importing orders. This is another common challenge that our customers have. And I'm going to cover in more detail some tips and tricks on how to maintain cross-references, but let me just quickly show a couple examples of some cross-reference errors. So I've already up here, but I'm going to hit process. And I have an order here that I'm importing for, I think, Target. Some errors and some warnings. And then it really does two things. One, it tells you if there's any conditions that have been detected that I've set up to be a warning, which means I can still create the sales order, but the exceptionary situation, I want to make sure whomever is bringing the orders in is aware of those situations. If there's an error, I simply cannot get past that error until I fix the issue. So in this case, I've got some configuration turned on where I say, hey, when the order comes in, I want to match the ship method that's sent on the purchase order to a ship method inside of my system. And that way my customer is dictating which ship method to use when filling their orders. I can be able to always assign the right ship method, the right carrier and class of service. In case I don't have a relationship set up. Also got an inventory cross-reference not found as well. These types of error messages, I have to then just set up that item relationship. And again, I'll cover those in a little bit more detail here as to why those relationships are required and how to maintain those. I've also got a location cross-reference error as well. As far as warnings, I've got the system set up to check for price conflict. So the transmitted price from the customer does not match what I've got set up in my price list. And then lastly, I don't have a shipping weight assigned for this item. For the purposes of SNs and possibly other downline processes, I may need that shipping weight set up to help calculate the total weight. And if it's not set up, I just have the system set to alert me of that situation. Okay. Data and exporting. So another common scenario that we encounter is when you're importing out invoices, ASNs, PO acknowledgments, etc. Our system is really doing some validation to make sure that you have everything that's required to process a shipment set up in your system. For example, I'm going to pull up a customer here. And ASNs, let's try a different customer. Okay. I believe Target requires a bill of number and a pro number to be sent on their ASN. So I'm going to remove those records, attempt to export out this ASN. Has intelligence to know that, look, you've got to have that value in order to send a complete ASN or invoice. So likely what's going to happen, I'm going to get an error message here, and it's just going to alert me to that situation. And when we get those types of errors, we just need to review the error report and determine to react. And we won't cover every single error message, but as you can see here, Target specifically requires a bill of lading number, so it's alerted me of that situation. If I were to go in and set up my BOL number, it should allow me to export my ASN successfully. So the next issue is not okay documents when you're importing them into Gentran. So I've also got some seed scenarios here that I can walk through. So in my workspace within Gentran, maybe I don't. So just as if it were an inbound document that comes in as not okay, if the document that imports into the workspace is not okay, you can use the same exact tool where you go to view, translator report. If there's any errors, it will show you exactly where the error is at. And that can be very helpful in determining what information is incorrect on outbound transaction you're trying to process. And then lastly, communication errors are another common issue that we encounter. Usually these occur when you're setting up a trading partner, either during the testing or the initial cutover to production. So one common suggestion that we have when we're setting up new trading partners is just to make sure that you monitor the customer situation very closely. So when you're first go live with that trading partner, you're confirming that documents are flowing through not only inbound, so you're receiving inbound orders, but you're also able to successfully send back documents and get acknowledgments back from that trading partner, which effectively means you got a handshake and you've confirmed you've got their they've got your documents successfully. Over 997s. 997s are an afterthought, but they're essential because they're a really handshake document that confirms that your business partner has received your documents. So if you were to send an invoice or an advanced ship notice or a purchase order acknowledgement to a customer, their system should automatically create a 997 that's returned back to your organization. And Gentran does a reconciliation, and it's constantly monitoring for those 997s to come back. And 997 does not come back successfully, that changes the status of a document that you sent out to overdue. And that would be a situation that you want to take action on to make sure that, make sure you understand what caused that situation, make sure that that gets addressed. Because if it's an invoice or an ASN and your trade partner has not received that, there certainly can be some consequences to that situation, including a chargeback from a retailer, or your invoice simply wouldn't get paid when the payment terms become due. So for 997s, as soon as an order comes into Gentran, I'll just process this one into the system here. Bear with me just 1 second here. Gentran configure to automatically create a 997 for round documents. One in real quick. Okay, it should be a hands-off process. And when we set up your EDI solution, we should have it set up to where documents come automatically, 997s are processed automatically, and they're sent back out. It'll be a very hands-free process, and there you go. So as soon as their document was received, a 997 is created, and that gets sent out to your trading partner. So we want to make sure that those are being sent out. Generally, once set up during testing and the production, there should never be any issues with 997s. That works pretty smoothly. For outbound documents, when you send those off to a business partner, such as an ASN, once that gets sent out, this document status here is going to be set to waiting for a period of 2 days or 48 hours, and that can be adjusted. If after 48 hours that 997 does not come back from your business partner, this will go to overdue. And if that becomes overdue, then at that point we should be concerned that they did not receive our document, and we need to take action on that. If you're running Gentran server, there is some advanced alerting capabilities that we can set up to help you identify those types of situations. We also have a dashboard tool called Pulse that has some analytics capabilities to alert you of those types of situations. So let's move on to how to recreate a 997. This is a fairly common question that our team gets, so I want to just spend a moment on that. So as an order comes in, let's just assume for whatever reason your trading partner did not get a 997 and to resend that document. There's a couple ways of doing that. One, you can go to your out drawer and you can see all 997s that were sent. The problem is that it's not real helpful to know which 7 to resend, but if you do know which 997 to resend, you can actually copy it back to your workspace here and post it back, and it'll retransmit that document. That's not a very practical approach, again, because it's a little bit difficult to track that down. Another that you can take is to go into Interchange's browser, and this shows in chronological order when documents were received and when they were sent. And you can use this filter function here to search for a specific document. And since I don't have my little local environment here, I'm just going to use some pretty basic filtering to say, just show me inbound Amazon documents, and turn on a view to see the actual data. So they advise me that this PO was not acknowledged successfully. I see that on 6/5 at 13:11 or 1:11 p.m. So I'm going to go to Commands, Process File, and you can bring out to the Gentran application directory and replace that particular interchange back into your system and create the order, but it will also recreate the 997. So that was at 1:13 p.m. Let me just confirm my order. And that appears to be, so I'm going to click open, and it'll process that document back in, recreate 997, and that will go back out to my trading partner. Again, some of these things that I'm walking you through, our team is posting out some help instructions, some tech notes, if you will, that would give you some step-by-step instructions as you encounter this type of issue. So let's move on onboarding new trading partners. This is a pretty common, if your business is growing, if you're moving into new new product categories, that type of stuff. If you're being asked to be on a dropship vendor program such as Target.com or Costco.com, you have to set up a new trading partner relationship. And there's this rhythm that you would want to go through to do that. So the first step in that process generally is to request the vendor guidelines for that particular retailer or trading partner if it's not a retailer. And the guides will tell you which documents are being exchanged, what the requirements are, what their EDI identifiers are, if they have any special labeling requirements, what those are, etc. Once you have that information, we have a trading partner order form that we ask that our customers submit, and that just basically provides us with which trading partner, what documents, and just some basic information. I'm going to assign an analyst to log in and set up that trading partner both in Gentran and also inside of Great Plains. Typically, the trading partner is going to ask you to fill out a survey, and they're going to you for some basic information such as what method do you use for communication, is it AS2, what's EDI ID, which documents are you capable of exchanging, and that type of stuff. And if you're not comfortable with that, that's something that our team can help you out with. Once you send back the survey, you usually are going to advise them of when you're ready to start testing. As long as we've set up the trading partner system, you can usually start testing right away. Our team would then assist with the testing cycle. Usually want to have you involved just to validate the documents are getting created properly inside of Dynamics GP. We also have to coordinate the migration to production, and the communications testing is something that, depending on which method, may take a little bit of time. You may have to be involved there as well if it's AS2 because you have to make a adjustment to your firewall to allow documents to flow through. And lastly, you have to do some cross-reference setups, and we'll do that actually in more detail just right now. So cross-references. There's a couple of cross-references that are required to integrate documents into your system. And the reason why we need these is because we're defining a relationship between information that your retailer or trading partner is accustomed to and the information, and comparing that to the information that's set up inside of Dynamics GP. So a couple examples is Amazon may have a specific part number in their system or an SKU that they use when they order product from their suppliers. Now, they may not track their suppliers' part numbers that they use inside their system. When we get their purchase order, there's no human intervention really at all, right? It's all an automated process of creating that sales transaction and matching their part number to your part number. So the inventory cross-reference table defines that relationship as well as some other things such as what's your default packing quantity, how do you handle unit of measure conversions, and those types of things. So that's the whole purpose of the item cross-reference. The locate cross-reference is used to link the trading partner's store location or distribution center location identifier to your address inside of Dynamics GP. Cross-reference is really just used to define some extended information about the carrier and the class of service that was used. Typically, some extra information required on ASN documents. And then the customer cross-reference is really where we define a lot of the business rules for a specific trading partner. So how do we handle their pricing, which do we assign that customer's documents to, and this is where we control how we assign the dates, which mappings are used, and all those types of configuration settings that are really kind of the business rules for that trading partner. Unfortunately, we're kind of running short on time, so I'm not going to go through each one of those cross-reference tables during our call. We certainly have a lot of documentation on how those cross-references are set up. I did want to mention a couple of tools that may be helpful. One is called our Global Inventory Cross-Reference. So if you are receiving on all your orders UPC numbers, or if a lot of your customers order you're using a UPC code should be universal across any of your customers. So rather than maintaining item cross-references for each and every one of your customers, you can have what we call a global item cross-reference. There is a setup that we have to do to enable the global cross-reference, and then once that's enabled, under additional in the SOP setup, we have a form called global inventory cross-reference. And then here, we can define your part number, so we look up your part number, or we can mass import the records from this table. Then we define what that UPC code is. When any customer orders your product, if they have the UPC code, the first step that the logic will do is it'll look for a match in this table. If it doesn't find a match because they're not sending the UPC code, then it will look at the customer-specific item cross-reference that you're maintaining because they're not sending UPC codes. So hopefully that's a helpful little nugget for you to use and save some maintenance in your organization. The other thing I want to show you was there's a tool within Dynamics GP that import information directly into the database tables. Pulled into GP as SA, but if you go to Tools, Integrate, Table Import, set a definition. And you set one up here for item cross-references. Effectively, what you're doing is you're just saying, hey, what format is my data? And you have two options, comma or tab delimited. But this is really mass importing item cross-references into the system. If you bring on a new trading partner and you're going to have hundreds or thousands of items that are going to be in their catalog that they could order, or if you continuously add new items for an existing customer relationship every season, then this might be a helpful way to get those items into your system so you don't have to set those up as orders come in and as that retailer orders those parts for the first time. That way you're not dealing with disruptive type issues. So you actually have to save your item records to a spreadsheet. So usually that's in an Excel form, and then save it to a comma delimited file or a CSV file format. Once it's in a CSV file format, you map out to your file. Done. And then you to the table that you're going to import it into. So in this case, the table is in the EDI for GP product, EDI for Dynamics, and the sales table is ESI inventory cross-reference. And then what I do is I have to just define which field maps to each field in the table. So on this side, on the left-hand side, I have the field in the table. And when I double-click it, it's going to ask me which field in my COMMON file is associated with that table when I do the data import. So I go to map these up, and I name my fields intuitively so I know which field matches to the table. Okay, so now I'm in a relationship here, and this is really the core 4 data elements that are required for an item cross-reference. There may be other things like a pack quantity you want to put in there as well. I'm going to click Import, and it's going to do now in this case I've got maybe 10 or 12 items, 15 items, but if there's thousands of items, you can imagine how much time that would help save. Okay, so here, when it covers commonly overlooked features, I'm going to walk through this kind of quickly, but there are several document integrations that are within the vSync specs that a lot of our customers maybe just aware of or didn't know how to leverage. So I just want to cover some of those briefly. This one's the PO acknowledgement. Some of our customers maybe didn't have a requirement to do PO acknowledgements when we initially set up their system, and then they later uncover that retailers asked them to send PO acknowledgements. So customers have done that inside of Gentran through a turnaround template, but we can actually do that within Dynamics JP, and that may save some time on data entries. So if that's something causing you guys some extra work, extra steps, let us know how we can help with that. That's a standard feature within our product. Issues, if you have customers that require a price catalog or required about it, we do have the ability to support that. 36, very similar transaction. Again, that's commonly required if you're dealing with retail or e-tail or click and mortar requirements for a dropship vendor program. That's a standard feature in our product that we can help set up as well. 816, these are address records. A lot of retailers haven't adopted this. Walmart specifically does provide these. So as they change addresses for their stores or as they add new locations, they'll send out an 816 document, and that's used to build an address record inside of GP, so you don't have to manually create those. 852 is point of sales data. Most retailers will share this if you ask them to send it to you. We have to integrate that into Dynamics GP into our tables. What it does, it really just kind of associates the UPC code or the retailer's PU with your internal part number, and it massages that data into a table so that we can use our out-of-the-box reports. And they're relatively rudimentary, but what some of our customers have done is they've built their own reports so they can do some pretty significant analysis on that data. So if that's something you're interested in, let us know. We're happy to help with that as well. 20s, this is, again, it's sort of a breakdown of the payments that are received in from a customer. And that itemizes all the invoices that were included in an electronic payment, any chargebacks, discounts, trade discounts that were taken off of that invoice. We could create the 820 and the GP, create a cash receipt of all the invoices. And what's important to know here is that if you're dealing with a large national retailer and you're shipping to hundreds of stores, you may have hundreds of invoices on one of these payments. So that payment application process can be quite time-consuming. This does it also will deal with the chargebacks, and there's some intelligence around how to deal with specific chargebacks, whether or not you want to dispute those or not. The 943, if you're using a 3PL, this is a common document that's overlooked. This could help with advising your 3PL of when inventory is being delivered to their facility or transferred over from a different warehouse location. And the 945 coming back really helps you confirm that they did in fact receive what they were supposed to receive, and helps you drive the receiving process into your system. I did want to cover some additional tips and tricks, but we're still running short on time. So I need to kind of pass through this particular slide here, guys. I want to cover a few more topics before we run out of time. So some common system maintenance or some recommended system maintenance that we wanted to share. First, if you're using Gentran Director, there is a tool within Director where you can set up to automatically purge documents. So Gentran Director about 10,000 documents at any given time, and it's in and out drawer. I've certainly seen much more than that, and it hasn't been necessarily an issue, but we have seen some odd issues when it gets above 10,000 documents. So, generally want to keep your EDI documents around, so if there are any sort of issues or disputes over an invoice or an ASN, you can go back and you can review that trail of that document. So if you're doing a lot of transaction volume and you're on Gentran Director, there's a couple things you can do. One, you can set up an automatic document purging, and that's through what's called process control. And process control allows you to set up events such as purging or automatically importing or exporting data, automatically doing sending and receiving. What I've done here is I've set up a document purge, and then what it is, it will remove any documents older than 120 days. And I've got it set up to where it'll run that every Sunday, so it does it off hours and it doesn't impact anyone that's using the system. If you don't purge your documents, because once you purge them, it deletes them permanently, you can make a backup of those files. And those files are stored locally on the Gentran machine inside the Gentran directory in what's called the interchange in and the interchange out directories. So that we at least have a backup of those files before you do the purge process. Another recommendation is to always keep an eye on the disk space on the Gentran machine. So if it's an old machine and you don't have a lot of space, just make sure that you have sufficient space as you continue to receive documents that will consume some space in your system until you do some purging. I also recommend backing up the Gentran directory. If you don't have a machine being backed on a regular basis, at least back up that directory. And that way, if the system ever does have any issues, we can restore everything. We don't lose all of your data. Gentran server, it has archiving capabilities that we can set up to happen automatically, which means we don't have to purge out the data. So that helps. The other thing that we recommend is always to keep it on the file store. Gentran does keep a copy of every single document. As time passes, as you process thousands and thousands of documents, that can consume quite a bit of space. ASNs, there is one recommended step that we would like to suggest, and that's after processing ASNs, there's a simple configuration option inside of our SP main form. ASNs are exported out, they will be archived. So it's a simple box you need to check. It's in SOP setup, and it's called Archive ASN and Export. What it does is as you process ASNs out, it moves into history. I've seen a number of customers that don't have that setting checked, and they don't go out and delete ASNs, and it just takes forever for those ASNs to load the form, and it can become very frustrating for their personnel. We also have some scripts here that help you clean out old ASNs in your archives, and that way that the history doesn't take a long time to run as well. And lastly, if you're having some issues with STQ orders, which are usually for cross-dock orders, feel free to route this. We've developed some capabilities to kind of parse that file. So if you are having some issues with that, let us know if it's taken a dramatically long time to process. If you are contemplating upgrading a GP 2013, I just wanted to quickly cover that. So our solution is certified for 2013. We do have a number of customers that are live on 2013. The upgrade is very simplistic. We just have to load a new file in your environment. We recommend doing some testing. The product is effectively the same, so you don't have to retrain your personnel. Your team, if you'd like to get a copy of our update as you're planning your upgrade, and we'll help you load that in your environment and help you with your production migration. And lastly, as we wrap up here, we're going to send out a note to our group here and formally invite you to our customer community. We have an online collection tool called Yammer that we use across our various products and customer groups. And on that community, we've got documentation, we've got Accellos experts are there to help with questions, and you can collaborate with your peers. You can post questions to the group, that type of stuff. So I want to make sure you guys are aware of that. Feel free to join, sign up. We'll send you the details on how you can access that group, and I think you'll find some value in that. So I know it's sort of over. I had to kind of rush through a few things there. I apologize. I didn't get to cover everything, but I wanted to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your busy day to spend the time. I hope this was beneficial. We really appreciate it. We'll be following up with our next sessions, and as well as how you can submit your feedback to us on additional topics you'd like to cover in future events. So I've included my contact information here. If there's any follow-up questions that we can help with, feel free to reach out to me or our support group. Again, thank you guys for your participation. We hope you have a wonderful day.